Hello. Okay, so I am going to make my great-grandmother's homemade egg noodles for chicken noodle soup. It's a fan favorite in my house and it's super easy, and I'm going to share it right now. So I have about 2 cups of flour. I don't actually measure it, it's just enough to fill the bowl. Let's see if I can mark this down a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so 2 cups of flour, a pinch of salt. I just mix it with my hands. And then I make like a little well where I'm going to crack 2 whole eggs into the center. This is really the most complicated part of this. And my great-grandmother handed this recipe down to her daughter, my grandmother, and then my mom, and then my sister and I. And now I have my kids making them. So, okay, so I just start scrambling the 2 eggs sort of gently. I don't want to incorporate the flour too quickly, and I don't want to move the fork too much. I just want to stir versus scramble, I guess is better, because otherwise it gets really lumpy and you don't want big clumps of flour. You want it to be really smooth. So it kind of catches the flour on the outside of the egg. And I only did a little pinch of salt and flour. That's it. That's all that's in here. So it's only a couple of ingredients. And once it sort of kind of starts to pull together, as you can see it, I use my spoon again, and I kind of just add the flour to the top of it so it starts to incorporate again. Keep doing this until you're getting kind of a form of a ball of dough. And this batch, just the 2 eggs and the flour, I usually make 2 to 3 for a whole pot of homemade stock with pulled chicken inside, and that's it. It's the noodles, the chicken. You can always do vegetables. I've done it before, but this is the hearty pasta part, noodle part, and oh my gosh, they're so nice and rich and flavorful. You could use canned or boxed stock, chicken stock, but I find the flavors better when I boil an entire chicken and then use that bone broth for this recipe. And that's how my great-grandmother did it. And she lived until she was 108, so I'm guessing this is something good for the soul. Anytime my kids are sick, I make this. Anytime a neighbor, a friend, anyone has a little sniffle, this will do it right up. So I just use this to kind of incorporate the rest of the flour until it's something that I can really pick it up and manage with it a little bit, handle it without my hands getting too dirty. I mean, they get dirty, but not terrible. All right, so that feels good. It's sort of buoyant and a little bit spongy. You don't want it to be too hard. Obviously, the more flour you add, the harder the dough. So you want to make sure it's not too over-floured. And then I just sprinkle a little bit onto my cutting board, and then I pick it up, and it's kind of messy because it starts to fall apart. It's a good thing. You don't want it to be, again, too much flour. Come in. Oh. Okay, sorry. Someone was at my door, and this will be part 2 of the homemade noodles. And I kind of had to pause for a second, so I'm going to show you where I got. I pulled the dough out. I needed to add a little bit of flour on my cutting board because I needed to knead it. And this is what I have now. Let's see if I got it. Let's see if this will stay. Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, we're good. So I just formed it into a ball. I just used, my hands got super dirty now, and you'll hear my children in the background with music, so I apologize, but this is my other love and sort of therapy is cooking, baking, that kind of thing outside of doing tarot. So I thought I would share this. It's a really, really amazing, fun recipe. It's certainly fun to do with kids because, getting dirty, playing with dough, it's like Play-Doh. Okay, so now that I have it in a nice, soft, looks like pizza dough, but I'm gonna roll it out, and actually, you know what? I use a pizza cutter because I feel like it makes it so much easier than using a knife. But again, these are just all family secrets, no longer a secret. But I start rolling it. These are the non-good looking noodles, but they are the tastiest I have ever had. So don't really worry about the aesthetics of these noodles because you're gonna wanna eat them every single day, and they store really well. You can freeze this dough. I have done it once or twice, but because it's so easy, I usually just make them on the fly. Oh, also, once you get it into that ball, you should really let it rest. Just set it aside, cover it for, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 minutes tops. Doesn't have to be a long time, but it does help the gluten relax a little bit and the dough to be a little easier to handle when you're rolling, because you do have to put a little bit of muscle into it. Now that my son is almost 14, he's got more upper arm strength than I do, so he's pretty good at the rolling out part now. And my daughter, who is 9, likes the getting messy, putting her hands in everything part of this, so super fun with kids. And then I'm gonna show you what it looks like at the very end, but I wanna show you what they look like when I cut them, and then I'll do the final to show you what they look like in the pot and almost ready to eat. So I told you I'd do a big pot of homemade stock. I'm gonna move sideways so I can do this. Big pot of homemade chicken stock, and I pull the chicken straight off of the cooked chicken that I boil. And that usually takes on the stovetop a couple of hours with a whole chicken, 2 to 3 hours. So I can put it on in the morning, and then by the afternoon I can make the noodles, and it's like dinner's done. So, and then it stores really well, and it's especially good as leftovers the next day because the flavors, the chicken stock just absorbs into the noodles, and they're so good. So good. Okay, so this is pretty thin. You know, you don't want it to fall apart. It's pretty elasticy, but I make it thin, not too thin, because they will puff up when they absorb some of the liquid. So again, not the prettiest of noodles, but I just use my little pizza cutter and I sort of try to get them about the same size. So I don't know, what's that, like 4.5, 5 inches? And then you set them aside. I don't let them sit. I could do this and then stick them right into the pot of liquid and start cooking them, but because I'm making several, just making sure they don't stick together, because I'm making several batches, I just usually grab a plate and spread them out so they don't stick to one another. But that's what they will look like before they go into the pot, like this. And I had another batch already in, so I will show you what that looks like. I mean, it's just, hopefully you could see that. So good. It's hard because they start to rise to the top of the liquid very quickly. So you do have to stir. It's just kind of on a low to medium rumble, and cooking time is about 15 minutes for this. 15 minutes, maybe 20. I mean, it's a big pot, so. All right, so I'm gonna add these additional noodles to the pot, and then we'll come back for the eating. Bye. Okay, they are finished. So I've already had one bowl. I'm on my second or half bowl. So I wanted to show you the finished product with my great-grandmother's homemade egg noodles, chicken and noodle soup. Let's see. Oh my gosh, it is the best. I'm gonna show you how it's like super thick. It's almost like dumplings, but not. I just did extra noodles, like 3 batches, so it absorbed a lot of the homemade broth, but so delicious, so good for you. And I'm gonna go and finish my bowl. Look, oh my God, so good. These are the best things ever. Oh my God. Enjoy.